Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me for the latest update of Market Watch. I apologize that I haven't been able to make these updates over the past several weeks. I'd fallen extremely ill with my first bout of COVID. Yay. Although I still have a slight cough and some congestion, I am feeling much better finally, and I have the needed energy in order to put this video together. So thank you for being here with me and taking the time out of your busy lives to learn about our market. And since it's been a bit since my last update, I felt it was prudent for my first video to be a deep dive, and we cover our market dynamics for April of 2023, as well as a touch on some national economic news. And so I'll have that in the timestamp description below, so you can go to the sections that are most important to you. So please let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to cover in future updates, and let's get into it. First off, the highlights. One, we are experiencing our peak spring market right now, and many properties are experiencing multiple offers and selling within that first week or two, especially when they're priced and marketed appropriately. This is especially the case for those homes that are priced under that $500,000 mark and in the Boise area. The upper end or above, $700,000 or $800,000 has started to slow down more significantly, but we're still seeing some of those priced homes as well move quickly. So it just depends on the home and kind of the area that you're in. But the market as a whole is nothing like what we experienced over the last year or before even. And buyers are not having to compete offering insane over asking price, nor are they needing to waive every contingency in order to get their offer accepted. It's still technically a slight seller's advantage right now in the market, but because you're not competing against 10 or more other offers, more like 1 to 3 other offers, it's a lot more fair. Then when we're looking at the average sales price, existing homes is slowly declining year to date as things continue to stabilize as we expected. Pending home sales are up month over month along with inventory, though the percentage increase in pendings is actually larger than the percentage increase in inventory. So that's one of the reasons why we still have yet to see any significant increase in home availability. And when you look at the total number of homes sold, it's down both month over month and year over year, which we expected. And in fact, in the last 12 months, we've had 42% fewer homes sold than the previous 12-month period. So that's something interesting to think about. When we are looking at the national news, the Fed met earlier this month and decided to raise the Fed rate by another 0.25%. This brings the Fed rate up to 5.25%, which is the highest it's been since 2006. And although many thought the Fed would determine to keep it at that 5% mark that they rose it to last meeting, some, like Lawrence Yun, the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors, is saying that the most recent rate hike is unnecessary both for the economy and will also hurt the national housing market. In an interview, Yun also stated that home sales are back to pre-pandemic levels. However, existing home sales are historically low. Currently, housing inventory is down 40% nationally compared to 2019. He goes on to say that the housing market is being held back by a lack of housing inventory, and it's a problem that existed prior to the pandemic. And then housing prices that have run up dramatically because of the housing shortage, the recent price declines we're seeing are temporary. So he's forecasting that mortgage rates will fall closer to that 6% in 2024, which we're already starting to experience right now. And he expects that the existing home sales is going to bottom out later on this year before we see an upturn in 2024. And that's exactly what I'm anticipating locally as well. The next big thing in national news that will have effects on the housing market is the U.S. debt ceiling talks. You may remember that I touched briefly on this in another video earlier this year, back in January, when Congress missed the deadline to increase the debt limit then. In that video, I mentioned how the Treasury Department would be using extraordinary measures to cover the cost of operating the government from that potential default back in January until they run out of money. And they essentially had until June to figure that out. Well, as predicted, we saw the government fail to get anything meaningful done in the past several months in regards to the debt ceiling, and the public forgot about it, as well as the stock market. And so our local spring market behaved as though everything is fine. But now we're coming up on that deadline, and we are still no closer to a solution that would prevent the government from defaulting on its debt for the very first time in history. Looking at the markets right now, it appears that several investors believe that we've seen this happen before and think that the government will pull their act together and get everything finished in the last final second, like they've pretty much always done before, in order to prevent catastrophic market ramifications on a global scale. On the world stage, the U.S. government is like the Lannisters, and the Lannisters always pay their debts. It's what the U.S. is known for. It's the main reason that foreign and domestic investment in U.S. bonds are seen as safe. And it's a large part as to why the U.S. dollar is such a widely accepted currency around the globe. And like the Lannisters, the U.S. considers themselves to be top dogs on the global stage and is a superpower whose hubris is probably its greatest weakness. And whether we know it or not, our governments are constantly playing the Game of Thrones, so to speak. The world's nations are frequently vying to either be or stay in power, and not to be dramatic, but as we all know from the Queen Regent herself,
when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. There is no middle ground.
Things are looking like we might be at a very interesting inflection point for our nation's history and global standing if they can't get their act together, and unfortunately, we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, so now that the national stuff is covered, let's dive into what's actually happening here in the Boise area. First off, in Ada County, both the total inventory and pending sales are up month over month. However, inventory came up at a lower rate, and inventory is up 14.4% with 662 existing homes in Ada County, and that's a full percentage point less than the 15.5% increase we saw in pending sales, which landed us at 538 pending contracts. The total number of homes sold in April decreased by 3.5% from March's number, with only 359 sales total, an interesting time to see April's numbers be less than March, and average days on market is on a rise, with 36 days on average, which is up 6 days. So I expect that to continue until we're closer to 40. And the note is, prior to pandemic, we were seeing the days on market average about 26 days. So we've already surpassed that. No surprises there, given that mortgage rates doubled in the last year. And along with the longer days on market, the average sales price has declined year to date by 2.7% in Ada County. And so we now have an average sales price in Ada County of about $593,000. When looking at the areas within Ada County that have seen the greatest change in the average sales price, we have Southwest Meridian as the biggest loser in the average sales price, decrease of 6.7% year to date, which moved the average down to $653,000. Coming in at number 2 with the biggest change, also saw a decline of the average sales price over 6%, bringing the average sales price down just over $634,000. And then the next part of Ada County experiencing the greatest loss in average sales price so far this year is Kuna, coming in at number 3 with a decline of 4.4% year to date, landing the average sales price out there of just under $460,000. On the flip side of that, the area with the greatest increase in the average sales price so far this year is Garden City, which has seen an increase of 6.3% year to date and has an average sales price of about $573,000. Now, if you want to know about your specific area, your neighborhood, I have all the details and all those reports broken down. It's a lot of information to provide in these videos, so just let me know what area you want, and I'm happy to send it to you. So that's what we have for Ada County. Let's get into Canyon County. We also saw inventory increase, but we saw the number of pending home sales as well as the number of homes sold decrease month over month, which is unusual for this time of year. We currently have 270 homes for sale in Canyon County, which is up from last month's 249 homes. It's about an 8% increase, while the number of pending sales declined, but are basically the same, with 235 pending homes compared to 238. There were 195 homes sold in April in Canyon County, which is down just about 5.5%, The average days on market is now at 37 days, which increased by 5 days. So roughly the same as what we are seeing in Ada County with their 6 days increase. So coupled with these numbers, it's no surprise that we've also seen the average sales price decline just over 3% since the beginning of the year for Canyon County. The average sales price in Canyon County is just over $423,000 right now. On the areas in Canyon County that are experiencing the greatest change in average sales price, we're seeing Wilder come in at the top place with a decline of about 7.6%. Average sales price in Wilder of $394,000. In second place, we have Parma, also showing a decline of 7.5%. Average sales price in Parma is currently sitting at $324,000. In third position, we see Northeast Nampa with a decline of about 4%, which is boasting an average sales price of $437,000. Now, when looking at the area with the largest gain, we can see Greenleaf coming in at top slot with an increase of 8.8% year-to-date and an average sales price in Greenleaf of $528,000. Moving on to mortgage rates. And to wrap up this video, we are seeing rates continue to hover between that 6% and 6.5%. Currently, we're sitting at 6.39% on average for that 30-year fixed rate mortgage, according to Freddie Mac's market survey this week. And overall, we can see that this year's spring market is pretty weird compared to years past. It's nothing like the craziness we experienced during the height of the pandemic, nor is it anything like what we experienced right before the pandemic either. So it's kind of a wait and see. Prices on a whole, they're largely stabilizing as our market specifically finds more balance. Some areas of the nation are still seeing price gains. Of course, we were one of the hottest spots in the nation, so of course we're seeing prices come down a bit. It just kind of depends. It's a decent time to be a buyer if interest rates don't knock you out, because you can always refinance down the line. And since reports are saying that rates will likely come down either by the end of the year or early next year, that could be a good timing for you because you have less competition right now than what you will face when rates come down, because as rates come down, more people will enter into the marketplace, and prices are unlikely to change significantly in either direction over the next 12 months. It does kind of depend on what happens with the government, but you really can't buy at the wrong time unless you're in a position where your employment could be unstable or you have reason to believe that you might need to move in the near future, because you can always wait it out. Realistically, if you don't need to sell your house, it doesn't really matter what your home is worth as long as you're able to make your mortgage payments. So unless you're unable to make those mortgage payments, that's when you would need to worry about timing the market a little bit more. On the selling side, based on the current trajectory, sooner is probably better than later, depending on circumstances, because we are seeing prices with the downward pressure, not a significant change, but we are still currently experiencing a seller's market and there are fewer options out there for buyers. So depending on your specific home, you could be missing out on potential that comes with selling when you have less competition available. And then depending on what happens with the government, of course, the market could be not as good of shape as what we are experiencing right now, with a little bit of turmoil there. I expect some turmoil of the summer just in general because of that, regardless of if they get it figured out. But you really have to determine what's going to be best for you in your specific situation, because what could be a wonderful time for one person could be a terrible time for somebody else. So that's where I come in handy. So feel free to reach out if it's something that you're considering. I'm happy to give you just any of the information that you need in order to make that good decision for you. Well, I appreciate you being here with me and sticking it out and waiting for me to put out another video. I apologize again for not being well enough in order to put these together. They do take a lot of time and effort in order to get this put together in a cohesive manner that I think is acceptable for the public, at least. So that's what I have for you this week. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time for Market Watch. Hope everyone stays healthy.